Paul Warne has been sacked as Derby County manager. That is the breaking news coming out of the club today. It was announced around lunchtime today or just after that, and it has come as a bit of a shock to the fan base. I think some fans wanted Paul Warne to obviously leave the club and a change to be made in terms of the manager. Other fans were content with Paul Warne and hopeful that with the signings we made in January we were able to change the form. But there wasn't really any rumours of Paul Warne being sacked, and it sort of come out of the blue today. But let's discuss it in today's video. It's going to be a pretty raw one today. I'll just be talking to the camera with little to no editing about this, so I'll just talk to you guys now watching. And what's my thoughts after the announcement today? Well, it's come out of the blue and it immediately makes me think Derby County must have a manager lined up ready to take over after Paul Warne. It's coming out that apparently Paul Warne was only told after training today, I presume before the players headed onto the team bus to head down to Norfolk ahead of Norwich away tomorrow. So it was definitely a late decision and one that come out of the blue to Paul Warne, as is being reported. And in terms of who's taking over in terms of the game tomorrow, it's Matt Hamshaw, Jake Buxton, Bradley Johnson, Andy Warrington will take over, and as well as any other backroom staff that are obviously at the club. And going into tomorrow's game without a manager is obviously a lot different to having a manager. Your style of play could change dramatically. We could change completely from what Paul Warne has been trying this season. We could see a new lineup as well, so it makes tomorrow very interesting. Norwich are obviously in good form, they're a good team, so it's going to be difficult for us to get anything out of it. And in terms of the stats, Derby County as of now, when Paul Warne has left, sit 22nd in the Championship on 27 points, I think with 2 points off climbing out of the Championship relegation zone. We've suffered 17 defeats this season, only winning 7 games and drawing 6, only winning 1 away from home. And at the moment it's 8 losses in a row, including the cup game away to Leyton Orient in amongst that. And I think what I want to say is that period of defeats come at a really difficult time, because Derby County, up until about Boxing Day when we played Leeds United, I think we looked pretty fine. You know, we were picking up those results at home. The away form wasn't great. That has been apparent for the whole season, but at home we were picking up results, and we had a decent gap. I think at one point we had a 6-7 point gap away from the relegation zone, but obviously that has suffered with the form over the course of January. And like I say, the run of form definitely didn't come at a good time. If we'd have been on this losing streak in December or November, then I'm sure this same decision would have been made, but it would have allowed a new manager to come in and bring in players that he wants, because now we're in a position where they've given Paul Warne the transfer window. He's been relieved of his duties just after, and a new manager who's coming in is a manager who's going to have absolutely no say on the squad or team of players that he's got at his disposal. We saw Carlisle United sack their manager on the final day of the transfer window or something like that, and they come under a lot of stick for doing that, allowing a manager to bring in players of his own and then sacking him just before the second half of the season really kicks into gear, leaving players in a sort of limbo where they've signed for one manager but they're not going to be playing under him. Paul Warne leaves this team in a position where they've now got to play a different style under a new manager. Now, Paul Warne obviously took over from Liam Rossini in September 2022. It was actually a shock decision to let Liam Rossini go and bring Paul Warne in. At the time, I think we offered Paul Warne a 3.5/4 year deal. I think it was a 3.5 year deal, which means he'd been at the club for about 4 seasons if he'd have seen it out. I think it lasted to the end of next season. Obviously, he joined in September of that year, and obviously in the second season, he guided us to promotion back to the Championship. And I just want to say on that, for my generation of football fans, I was far too young to remember when we were promoted last, obviously that season to the Premier League when we beat West Brom at Wembley. I was far too young to remember that. So in my 10 years plus of having a season ticket, Paul Warne is the only manager who's delivered a promotion, and I've been able to witness a promotion. So I'll always remember that and always remember him for that. I think it's a positive note that he's obviously left sort of mid-season and we've not been relegated with him, so he'll always be remembered as the manager who took us up from League One after that period of administration at the club, and he guided us to that promotion where we had some great wins in that season. But I think obviously the reason why I've let him go is, like I said in the statement by the club, that a change is needed, and it's a result-based business at the end of the day. In Derby County, 8 losses in a row, it wasn't really acceptable, was it? And a new manager now has to come in and try and turn that around. Now, I agree with the club. I think it's a right decision to be made. Like I said, I understand why he wasn't sacked mid-window. The club could come under a lot of stick for that. A new manager would then have to be sourced quickly and be able to bring in a push any players of his own to fit his own style of play, and he wouldn't really have had much time to do that. And like I say, up until probably just before the start of the window, we looked pretty okay. We had a bit of a points gap between us and the relegation zone, but form has just plummeted, and the direction the club was heading in this January was going down to League One, being completely honest. So it's important that we've made this decision now. I was one who believed in we needed drastic change to really change the direction of the club and the way that it was heading, unfortunately, under the stewardship of Paul Warne. And I know a lot of fans were discontent with his style of play. I, for one, I was the same. I was unhappy with the football that we were playing, in terms of I felt like we weren't generating enough chances in games. Yes, we were defensively sound, but them narrow losses, the 1-0 losses, 2-0 losses, they were far too repetitive this season, especially away from home, where we just didn't look like picking up another win away from home this season. So I think a change was needed to freshen things up, and I think there's definitely a couple of players in our team who have that potential to really step it up a gear in a different style of play. I think the most obvious one would be Kenzo Houdmine, a player who has performed at times really well, but I think for the large part, he's almost got swept away in games because of the defensive role that he's been playing. And I think really as fans, we just want to see a little bit more expansive football. I think we want to see us be less one-dimensional. I think that's something under Paul Warne this season really struggled with. Is our one-dimensional style of football last season worked because of how hard we were to play against, and we had some of the best players in the division. Stepping up into the Championship, we don't have that. And our one style of play, I feel like we got found out in a number of games this season. So in terms of the names that have been linked with the Derby County job, obviously there'll be a number of people linked with the job, and currently these stand at Gary O'Neill, Rob Edwards, Sean Dyche, Stephen Gerrard, Russell Martin, Steve Cooper, amongst a number of other names. I even saw Wayne Rooney linked in there again. I'm sure that's the least likely link to be made there. But from what stands out to me amongst their managers, is their managers who've had Premier League pedigree. Now, it would be really exciting for the club to go for one of their managers, a big project manager who could hopefully take us up to that next level in terms of playing better football, results improving. But for me, what I want to see now is a manager come in who's going to stabilise the team, climb us out of that relegation zone, and then in the summer we'll review what needs to be done, whether it needs to be a project, whether we keep the same manager on. And what I'm saying is I want a manager from now on a contract until the end of the season, a manager who can come in, improve his profile by keeping Derby County up in the Championship, and Derby County can maintain the Championship status. I think at the moment of time, we've not got the team and not really in the position as a club probably to invest in a project manager, a manager who's got another 4 years or another 3 years to take us on this journey. I think now it just needs to be sustain in the Championship, stay in the Championship no matter what. And for me, out of that list of names, I'd love Gary O'Neill. I think he's a really exciting manager and a manager who could do good things with this squad. But like I say, he's of Premier League pedigree. Will he really want to drop down to Derby County at the time, a third bottom in the Championship, and heading to League One? That could be really damaging for his own career if he was to suffer relegation with us. I'd love Sean Dyche. I think he'd be great. I think a lot of Derby County fans would like that link. But like I say, he's just coming off the back of the Everton job. I think probably in his own mind he's a Premier League manager, and if not that, then he's a top end of the Championship manager. In Derby County, we're not that at the moment, nor are we going to be that in the near future at all. So I'm quite unsure of who we're going to bring in. There's rumours that an announcement could be made tomorrow morning, and that I could understand Derby County, especially David Clowes, having someone lined up after relieving Paul Warne of his duties. But I'm really unsure of who we're actually going to bring in, which makes it a little bit exciting, interesting at one, but also a little bit unnerving in the other. We know tomorrow we're not going to have a manager or an official manager who's in charge tomorrow for the Norwich game at all. I understand that. So it's interesting to see who we could bring in. I think Derby would probably going to have to spend a decent bit of money on a manager until the end of the season. If it is one of the managers, like I say, will come in and be here until the end of the season, try and keep us up. If we invest in a project manager, I'd be a little bit worried, because I don't want that project to be starting in League One next season. I think at the moment the mission is imperative: stay up in the Championship. We're only 2 points adrift. Yes, it's difficult to climb out that relegation zone. Once you've dropped into it, you've got to get out of that losing mentality, especially with the run that we're on, 8 losses in a row. But it's just about staying in the Championship. We need a manager who knows how to do that. We need a manager who's confident in himself to do that, and also confident in the players. He's not going to be able to adjust the team whatsoever. There's no transfers that are going to be coming in unless we sign any free agents, which I'm doubtful of. So yeah, that's the state Derby County are in at the moment. For me, it was the right decision to sack Paul Warne, because, like I say, the direction we were heading in was League One. Drastic change was needed to improve the results and probably just improve the overall mood and confidence amongst the fan base as well as the team, in that yes, we can win games in this division. Yes, we can play a different brand of football, and we can be unpredictable, unlike what we've seen in recent games. Now, for me, there is enough games remaining, but it's going to be very difficult. We have to make a decision quickly on a new manager. But it's the right decision by Derby County for me, and they're just my thoughts on that one. Obviously, it did come out of the blue today, so apologies about this video being pretty raw, just me talking to the camera. But there you go. Let me know your thoughts down below on Paul Warne being relieved of his duties at Derby County and who you expect us to bring in down below. And I'll see you tomorrow for Norwich away.